do okay.
1 second.
1 minute? Okay. You go.
All right. I just want to say what's up. Zach O'Farrell, Director of Education Programs at the Afro Latin Jazz Alliance. We're here for our weekly masterclass. And this week we have the terrifyingly talented pianist Ahmed Alom, who I first met as he's a classical pianist, but he came to New York and immediately started playing gigs left and right, playing jazz, playing Latin music, playing tango, playing all sorts of stuff. And who knows what Ahmed will be playing, another year from now, playing intergalactic music. But we have the fantastic Ahmed Alom with us today, and I'm excited to hear Ahmed play. I'm excited to hear what you have to say. So welcome, man. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you. Yeah. So first of all, I want to thank Zach and the Alja for Latin Yes Alliance for making this possible as well as part of the master classes. What I'm gonna give here is a general way and trip into the Cuban piano, which is a really deep tradition since the 19th century. So maybe the first thing I would like to ask you, we can, talk. You can actually question, anything you want to know about the music. This is for that. I will be playing. I want to talk to you guys and to see how you feel about everything. So the first thing I want to know is maybe, I know Juanga, so I know you have played some of the Latin jazz before, you have played some Cuban music as well, so you have a little bit of knowledge as well. So does any of you guys have maybe been introduced to Cuban music or maybe Latin jazz or Latin music before? Okay, that's good. Yeah, so what I'm gonna do, I'm going to start with two concepts of the Cuban music. I'm going to speak a little bit before playing some of the examples I want to go, but a brief history about why the piano is so important in the Cuban music, and we have to separate that in two categories. There's one category that comes with the classical tradition in Cuba. As Zach said, I am a classical musician, and I'm not the only one in Cuba. The thing is that everyone in Cuba who plays jazz, we talk about Chucho Valdés, we talk about Gonzalo Rubalcaba, we talk about Frank Emilio. Everyone, they had like a classical training. So from the roots, the Cuban piano can be really like virtuosic in some way. And this comes because an influence from Spain and France that came with the danzas and contradanzas, or the dances and the country dances. The meaning of this actually is called, they don't really know exactly if it's a country dance in English or the contre dance in French, but it comes actually from a dance of the salon, so that the rich people will go and dance this. So this is not really popular music, but it will define a little bit what is next into the piano in the music, right? So we have the classical influence. I will talk about two of my favorite composers and two of the one I feel most important, which is Ignacio Cervantes and Manuel Saumell. I will go a little bit through these people, and from this tradition came what is the danzón, which is the national style in Cuba, even though it's not really played. It's more played in Mexico now and in other countries, but in Cuba it's the national style in Cuba. And this danzón led to other genres like the mambo, that you might know the mambo, the cha-cha-cha, the guaracha, and other styles, right? So that's one side of the tradition. And the other side, we're talking about the origin of the son cubano, which you might know better. The son, which lead to the salsa, to the world famous salsa that we know now. And with this come the tradition of what is called the piano tumbao. Of course, I believe that you know what is a tumbao, the piano, which is a pattern that we play in order to be a rhythmic accompaniment into an orchestra in salsa. It's a pattern that we have. So that came from the son cubano, but the trick here is that the piano tradition comes from another instrument, which is called like the tres cubano. It's like a guitar that it has like a double strings, and they play and they improvise with that guitar, right? So I'm gonna play a little bit some of the examples of the danzas and contradanzas, and I found this interesting because these works are considered like classical works that I don't see that way. They are considered works that they put in competitions, in classical competitions, and they have a lot of the styles that happen to do in the French school of music, of classical music. Really fine style, really like the counterpoint really well shaped, but still the rhythm is really intense and it's really there as part of the nationalist approach that the Cuban composers give to the music. So I will play a couple of the danzas by Ignacio Cervantes so that you know a little bit what I'm talking about. He was a Cuban composer from the 19th century. He studied in France as a classical composer. He even met Franz Liszt. He met all of the predecessors of Ravel and Debussy and all these people. And he was one of the most, how do I say this? He was like a hero for the wars of independence in Cuba in the 19th century. At that time, he left to France and he couldn't go back because he was, he was like forbidden to go back. So he wrote a set of the 40 danzas in homage to the Cuban tradition. So I will play two. One is called Three Hits, and you actually will see why. This is called the Three Hits. And then I will call one that is called the Rake or El Berolio, so that you see a little bit. So, this Cervantes, thank you. No, so the deal here, as you can see, this is like really rhythmic music. And there is a problem that some people think that this is like fully classical music, which is not. That's why I don't really like to think about something as popular, something as classical, something as jazz, because at some point all of this music was in the popular way, Like even Bach, he composed things for people to dance and to people to have fun. So I don't really see why the labeling between all of these things. So we can talk about music as a whole thing, right? So with these dances, you will see the first thing I want to talk to you about, which is a pattern. It's like a clave. Maybe you are familiar with the concept of the clave. You know what the clave is, which is a pattern, a rhythmic pattern that is used in the Latin music in general, which it can be like this. Right? So in this case, what they use is called the cinquillo cubano. I don't know if you have heard about the cinquillo cubano. Maybe, I don't know if you have a way to write it there. I can write it later maybe. But the cinquillo cubano is a pattern that you actually see like this. So it's like that. So with this pattern, this is the actual pattern that came later into the danzón. The danzón is, as I said before, was one of the predecessors of the mambo and the cha-cha-cha. And what happens in the danzón is that the clave in the danzón goes like this. And the structure is classical. It's like a rondeau form. The rondeau form is a classical structure when you have a theme A, then you go to theme B, you come back to theme A, then you go to a theme that will be called C, then you will go A again. So it's a classical form used in the popular music, right? So in the cinquillo cubano, in my opinion, because there's many opinions about the origins of the clave, how to play the clave, a lot of people will say that you have to feel the clave. There's no way to explain the clave, which has some truth on it, but not completely. There's always some way to explain everything, I guess. So with the cinquillo, I feel that in order for you to understand what is the clave and how to place the actual clave in the music, which is one of the hardest things in Cuban music. Let's say that you are in a gig, for example, and people will play a song. Maybe Juanga knows a lot about this because he played Latin music, and they will start playing, and you don't even know what tempo is, what clave is, how should you play, so you have to just go with the flow somehow. So in order to know and to understand the feeling, there is a way to explain it that maybe will be easier for you. With the cinquillo cubano, I would like to simplify some of the things that we do. The cinquillo is like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we can simplify this and we can only accent 1, 3, and 5. So we have this 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1. So we have a triplet, so it's not that complicated. And I can say that most of the Cuban music is based on a triplet, actually. Here comes the syncopation, that why Cuban music cannot be felt on the beat. It's a music that is felt as a syncopation. You have to feel it like in jazz in the second beat or the fourth beat, mainly the fourth beat in this case. But as an easy way to explain it, it's just a triplet that we use. You have pa, 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 4, and you have the 4 as the last beat of the triplet. So in that way, it's easy. So when you do the clave, it's mainly this: 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? So this is a way to break down the clave and to make it seem it's really not really a complication. It's more about the triplet feeling that you actually need, right? So this is something about the classical structure. Now I'm gonna jump a little bit into the other side, into the popular one. Later I will ask Zach and people, to actually play some of the examples. I have a playlist in Spotify for the lessons that I give to Cuban, to people that want to learn Cuban music. And one of the principles I like to say is that the son cubano, which is the one that led to the salsa, the predecessor of that was a genre from the east in Cuba called changui. Have you heard the changui? Okay, so the traditional changui, really traditional changui, there's really little albums that you can find in that, because we're talking about people that live in the countryside. They don't want to know anything about CDs. They don't want to know anything about making money as musicians. They just want to have fun, to live their life, and to play. That's why all of these musicians, they really don't want to go out and record. So if you really want to hear the original changui, you have to go to Cuba. You have to travel to Guantanamo, and you have to stay in a house of these people, eat their food, like have a bath in the river, so that they can play that music, in order for you to actually know what really is, right? So we have some albums in Spotify that are really good. I made a selection for Zach later to play it. But the breakdown about the changui is that, first of all, there is no a clave. The changui, you cannot play changui with a clave in the traditional way, but you can feel the clave in there. So the clave is inner there. You can say, okay, there is a clave, I feel the clave here. So as a predecessor, you can be sure that the son cubano has the same thing, except they have more instruments. The changui is only a bongo, which is like two drums, on your legs that you play like this. You have a tres cubano, which is the guitar that I explained before, which is the one that is the pattern we use on the piano, as a tumbao. We have a singer. We have a guiro, which is this instrument that goes like this, right? And we have a marimbula, which is a really strange instrument that they play on the East, that later they actually substituted with the bass. So the marimbula is like a bass function. They don't even place the bass as a harmony. So it's everything rhythm. So
do you want me to play anything? Do you want me to
yeah.
the track?
Actually, yeah. Let me find the playlist right now, and maybe you can play Homenaje a la Tamblette, so that we have a little bit of, I want to put like 3 songs, so that you have a little bit, of what's going on. Not the whole song, so maybe like I don't know, like 30 seconds or 40 seconds of a song, just to actually have the feeling. I don't hear Zach.
Sorry, give me 1 second. It doesn't seem to be playing on my computer.
Oh, okay.
Weird.
Okay, we got it.
Y desde Guantánamo lo traigo para ti como homenaje a Chito la Tamblé, el más exponente.
Okay, so you see already a kind of complexity that is there on the rhythm. So I want to break down a little bit that for you. The only thing that plays on the beat there is the guiro. That's the only thing that plays on the beat there. You won't find anything else for you to actually guide yourself. It's like 1, 3, and 1, and 3, and 1, and 3, and 1, and 3, and 1, right? You want to say something, Zach? Okay. So the only thing that plays like that is the guiro. So it's really hard for us, to know exactly what's going on. The function of the tres cubano here is mainly the harmony, but at the same time it's the rhythm, but at the same time they do the same lines as the singer, because there's not really other instrument that can do something like that. So the tres cubano is the only instrument that is harmonic there and melodic at some point. The bongos is improvising. The function of the bongo is actually to improvise, not in completely a free way. They have accents that they need to hit in order to have some sense of structure, but they are all the time improvising. And the marimbula, you see, they are doing these hits on the fourths, 1, 2, 3, pam, pam, pam. I will put the clave just to have a feeling. Pam, 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 pam. Right, so you can put a clave to that. It's actually a way that you can see better what's happening there, right? So, Zach, puedes poner, can you put there another one that is the one by César Orozco?
You got it.
La rumba me llama. La rumba está buena, I'm sorry. Yeah. So, there's a guy that we know, César Orozco, Juanga knows it. He's a beast of a pianist, and he actually has this album in which he plays a sangui. And this is the opposite. We had the original Changui, and this is a version that he did in a modern way with jazz, harmonies, with other things, so that we can listen a little bit to that. Dale.
You weren't hearing it?
No, I think you were enjoying yourself too much.
I was hearing it.
I saw you. Like,
give me 1 second. Let me see what's going on here. Let me see why you're not hearing it. Should be hearing it. Let's check this out. Sorry, everybody.
How much time do we have? Okay, we're good.
We got plenty of time. There's no official end time that you can run by.
Okay, yeah, because it's a lot of stuff, so I'm trying to be as precise as I can.
Hoy yo le quiero cantar porque la rumba está buena. Hoy quiero cantar, hoy quiero bailar, hoy quiero tomar porque la rumba está buena. Hoy quiero cantar.
Okay, so this is a killing album that you can check, all of you. And what happens here is actually the same structure. You know, he starts with the tumbao, you know, in the piano, but you actually can see how he's imitating a tres cubano, you know, in the sound, on the way that he plays everything. And then when the voice comes, he actually does the same as the voice. So that's one of the tricks with the changui in this case. So being this said, I think we can move a little bit to the son cubano and a little bit to playing a little bit and see how it goes. What I want to show you first is how to create a tumbao from scratch, not too complicated, but we can see some of the son cubano tumbao. In this case, we don't have a bass, so I will do the bass with my left hand and the tumbao with the right hand. When you actually play with a band, you have a bass player, so you can play with both hands, you know, like unison, or you can play with a third of a difference, you know, you can play a tumbao. Or you can play like this. Right? So this is something that you can play at unison, you can play with a third of difference, and you can play even with a sixth of difference, you know? Six. So in this case, we have something as a counterpoint. And that happens in the tumbao, in Cuban music. You have a counterpoint with the both hands that they can go in contra motion while playing. And you actually can have counterpoint with having a pattern later with a hand and later to have another pattern in one hand. Like maybe here I'm doing the same. All shapes. Right, so you can have something like, you know, going and bouncing all around with two hands. That's something that is really hard to develop at some point, but if you know the whole basic of the tumbao, then I think it's possible. So I will start by explaining the bass line, which is what we have to know first in order to do a tumbao. So I will keep the harmony simple. We will have the harmony, for example, we will do tumbao in C major, in this case, and we are only gonna use the principal harmonies, like the tonic, the subdominant, and the dominant. So in this case we have it's easy enough. Okay. Now with this that we have the harmony, we have to place the change of harmony. So in this case, the actual harmony can be like this. We count a 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. You never start on the beat. You start on 4 because that's where the change of harmony goes. I will explain. A 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? You actually go on the 4. Why? Because in the clave, when you count 1 and 2, 1, 2, 3, boom. That's actually the first beat. So with the bass actually goes pretty much with the clave in this case. And that's why I wanted to show you this, because then we will have the bass player doing the following. 1 and 2, 1, 2, 3. It's like the basic for a bass line. Now with the piano, if we do a tumbao, we need to find a leading tone. So we need to find a leading tone. When we do a tumbao, we actually play in octaves a tumbao. It's really common to play as an octave, you know? So in this case, we have to play with any inversion we like. We can play with the first inversion, you know, on the second inversion, in this case. Or we can play like this. Or we can play like this. That's actually your choice. You don't have to play in a specific inversion. You have to feel what is the best color for you in order to play in this case. So now that we have the bass, we can put together that in this way. 1 and 2 in 1, 2, 3. You actually see I'm doing pam pam pa ping pa pam pa ping pa pam pa ping. All of these other notes, these are like fill-ins. In here we actually can do this pam pam pa ping pa pam pa pam pa ping pam pa ping pa pam pa pam pa ping pa pam pa ping pa pam pa pam. We have to be grounded in the way to feel the pom, this is the important thing. Then the feeling can change, it can do, you know, but if you want to play with the feeling, if you want to play with the clave, with the bass player, you need to know where and how to actually play with the clave and the bass. It's actually a simple statement, but quite not simple to play in real life. So now I want to develop a little bit this line, which is really easy. So we can do a little bit 1, 2, 1, 2. So in this case, there is an element of counterpoint with the bass and the piano. So in this case, we have some of the hits going together, but we actually can develop a little bit. So in this case, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. In this case, you see pom pa 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 pom pa pa pom, and it sounds actually more similar to the tres how we hear on the changui, right? So actually the tumbao in Cuban music is mainly that when you play. You need to have in your head something like 1, 3, it's never on the earth. We can go to the earth to the first beat later, that I can show you some of the tricks to go on the earth sometimes and to have a better feeling. But you know, at that point you need to think about. And here I go with another of the concepts that I wanted to show you, which is like the clave of rumba. Do you know about the clave of rumba or guaguancó? Okay, the clave of rumba is, you know, another topic, but it's really much related to that, because if we actually hear what we're doing in the piano, it's mainly a clave de rumba pattern. Or in this case, we're playing a clave de song. And my point here is that you might be playing in a gig and you will see that the two claves can go in the same tune. And that's okay. That's completely fine if that happens. You know, some of the tunes by the advance of the timba, which is a variation of the salsa. I will explain it as a variation of the salsa, but it's mainly something that was in Cuba, that is the evolution of the song through many styles, through actually jazz, through actually the rock, through R&B, through son cubano, to the Puerto Rican salsa, to whatever you want. You know, it's everything like put together, and the timba actually happened in this case. And it's common from the timba bands to have a clave de song in one part of the song, and then they change to rumba clave, and then they can change to the 6/8, which is actually pretty common to change to 6/8 in Cuban music, you know, in that matter, right? So Zach, I want you to put something else, because I want to jump now that we spoke a little bit about the tumbao, not too much of the development, but you know already how to play a tumbao with a bass and everything. I want you to play, Zach, Anabacoa, Arsenio Rodriguez, but I want you to play from the second number 50. On the second 50. Yeah, because yeah, because there is a solo that I want you to hear.
Okay.
Here. It's hot in here.
A la orden.
Yeah. Now I want to go to improvisation a little bit so that you So it's only that solo, but it's kind of amazing how like this guy, he puts all of these tricks and all of these things like together, right? So we are talking here about the 1950. The pianist is Lely Martinez. In my opinion, he's maybe like the first pianist that started to develop the concept of improvisation in the Cuban music in the 50s. he was the pianist of a famous guy named Arsenio Rodriguez, maybe you know about him, who wrote a lot of songs, and he actually had a lot of advances to his band. Like he was like the first guy who actually introduced like the congas into his band. They actually played with the bongo before, clave, guiro, and he introduced a set of brass, like in the jazz of the big bands, right? In Cuba, the actual brass it was inexistent until him. In this, I would say the septet of the song, the most they had, it was like one trumpet only. So he put like maybe like 3 or 4 trumpets, playing like, amazingly. So Lili was his pianist, and he actually recorded a lot of tunes like this. And the way he used like to have some solos, it was amazing. So I want to break down some of the things for you for the solos, right, in this case. I won't do a harmony, but we can do a harmony like in C, as we said. This is a way to improvise in Cuban music, right? So in this case, we're talking about the octaves. In Cuban music, if you want to be a pianist and you want to improvise, you need to know how to do the octaves in this case, because it's mainly the resource that everyone uses, right? So you will see it on Lili. I want you later, if you have time, to actually see Antonio Marias Romeo, who was a pianist, he put the piano on the danzón, and he used it to improvise. He has some of the resources that I like to use in Cuban music. For example, right? It's like a really on the percussion, but it's like really a breakdown of the triads, If you want to actually play that as an advice, as a classical pianist, maybe this is an advice because a lot of people play the octaves and they try actually, they tense the arm in a way that is painful, So in that matters, I actually like to play the octaves in the most of the relaxed way possible. Because, if you play all like this, then you will have like a tendinitis and it's over, right? So I play the octaves. If you can see my arm, I play, and I am relaxed. And I kind of go from up. It's not like this. It's this. Right? In this case, that's how to actually break down. And in this, it's only like, it's this. It's like this. You can practice with an accent if you want. And like that. This is one of the stuff that he uses to improvise and that you can use in the, in Cuban music. And at the same way, when you do a triad, you can do this breakdown. Right, so this is one of the techniques that they use and you can use actually, but you have to be relaxed. You have to believe me, it's the only way for you to actually be able to play and to, and to feel good about it, right? So it's one of Lely Martinez, and with this, I want to go a little bit deeper into the concept of improvisation with a guy. His name is Frank Emilio Flynn. I don't know if you heard about him before. Frank Emilio Flynn was a pianist that he was blind, and he played like a god. Actually, he has a tune that I really like, and we play often with my friends, and it's like a standard of the Cuban music, which is called Gandinga Mondongo Sandunga. Really hard pronunciation, but it's really no meaning on that. It's just like a fun thing. But in that, it was called a concept of te descarga. A descarga in Cuba is kind of like the main concept, as if you were doing a jam session here. It's something like a jam session. If you play a blues, you know, I don't know, whatever. And then people improvise, you know, like you actually have like a harmonic pattern and people improvise, you know. The same concept as a jam session happened in Cuba with the descarga. And this guy, he was one of the first ones, you know, on doing that. And in this tune of the Gandinga Mondongo Sandunga, the harmony is actually the same. A harmony is, you know, like a D major thing, I would say 7, that he actually swings to 5. So it's that. Bum, 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 bum. Now, the actual placement that he did here is crazy exact. I would like you to actually put the recording that I have on the playlist.
Yeah, the Frank Emilio one, not
yes.
the All-Stars.
Yeah, no.
The
Frank Emilio, because that's the one they need to hear. Now, if you don't know anything about Cuban music, there's no way that you can say where's the beat in there. There's no way, because it's everything so confusing in this matter, right? So in here he does a 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm sorry, yeah. But in this case, it's that pum, 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 pum. You can do clave de son, you can do clave de rumba. At this point, it really doesn't matter because it's more about the spaces and the accents. You know, pum, 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 pum. These accents actually have a source that I want to share with you. And it's a pattern of the cáscara. Maybe Zach knows a little bit more about the cáscara in Cuba, which is a pattern that is played with the timbales, which is an instrument, you know, with 2 drums that you play with sticks, you know, with the drumsticks, you know. And the cáscara pattern is this. So we count 1, 2, 3, 4. Pam 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 pam, right? It's the cáscara, and it's actually a reduction. You know, it's an evolution of the cinquillo at some point. Pam Right? This is a pattern that is used in Cuban music, and now it's used in the salsa. You know, when you go to other countries and they play salsa, they use like the cascara as a pattern as well. So if we go slower, so we can say pam 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 pam, right? So it's like right? So it's kind of like the same thing that happens in the cascara with the accent. So when you actually hear a lot of these accents that happen in Cuban music, you shouldn't be afraid about it if you know the percussion, you know, and the roots of that, because all of this music, the root is the percussion and the rhythms. If you know how to play like the Cuban percussion, this is going to be really easy for you in order to do that. So we need to see the music from a rhythmic point of view a lot. I actually started actually when I was in school, I did percussion aside of the piano, so this kind of helped to develop this ear and this sense of ground and, you know, and how to be actually related, you know, in this case. So with Frank Emilio, we learned the concept of the descarga, improvisation, and now there is another tune that I want to show you, because then he introduced like the jazz harmony into the Cuban tumbao. So he has a tune that is called the Lázaro and Georgina. The tumbao is like this. In this case, we're talking about a 2-5-1 from jazz, you know? And then we have a suspended chord, which in Cuban music that never happened before in a tumbao. We have a suspended chord. It's like, okay, what? So we have a 2-5-1, then we have a 4 suspended. So actually, how do you play the tumbao? You play exactly the same as, you know, the octaves and that, but then you have to think, you know, as a chord. If you play a chord, you might play with the root, you know? You know? In this case, you can do that. The same way. Actually the same way that you play, you know, some tune in this case. So you can play and break it down, right? Remember, if you have all of this in mind, it's actually pretty easy to play a tumbao like this. In the case of Frank Emilio, he does something like this. This is kind of like pom pa 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 pam pa 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 pa. Or you can play as well, you know, you can play actually with the harmony. You cannot play with the roots, but you can play like this with another position. Or you can do it's a difference, you know, like you have actually the major, or you can have it like this. Or leading tone, you know, in the tumbao. You don't have to be all the same, but you can do a leading tone as well. But in this case, yeah, it's something really cool about the music of Frank Emilio, right? Now, I think that we can hear a little bit about that sax, maybe. I think we can hear like the Lázaro and Georgina. It's called like the tune. Okay. So this is mainly the stuff of the tumbao de Frank Emilio. I have an exercise that might help for you to play either you can play Cuban music or salsa in Venezuela, in Puerto Rico, in Colombia, whatever. It's an exercise that I feel helpful when you go through the cycle of the fifths, right? So you have a lot of songs that might go like whatever you have actually, but in this case we have, you know, cycle. You're familiar maybe with the cycle, right? So in this case, I recommend you practice like this. 1, 2, 1, 2. Minor or major, whatever, but in this case you need to follow the actual line. This is gonna help a lot when you have a progression, you know, in the tumbao, because you need a leading tone. It's not that you can actually switch from the tonic to tonic, tonic to tonic. So you need something like a leading thing, you know, in order to make it sound appealing. So when you have you can practice like that in this case, right? So we have covered a lot, I think. The next thing I think we can talk about this music. I want to actually do maybe like 2 more of the topics, which is like the timba cubana, how to play the timba cubana, which is something quite strange to hear out of Cuba. I can let you know later why. And then the influence of the rumba in Cuba with the religion in Cuba and the 6/8 and the 4/4. You know, how do they complement each other? So starting with the timba, Zach, I would like you to actually put Te Disco Azúcar by Los Bam Bam
Okay.
Yeah, which is gonna be pretty interesting.
Okay.
Okay.
Oye, azúcar para ti, mamita, para que lo baile suavecito, así. Cuando visité Cancún, no me imaginaba, ya vi un lugar en la playa que bien se pasaba. Me dirigí hacia el azúcar, que es como le llaman, y estaban bailando allí música cubana, mamá. No, 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 no. ¿Cómo? Mamá me dejaba dormido y yo.
Okay. Let me see how I start like this. Okay. In the music in Cuba in the 60s, everything started to change through the Cuban Revolution. So when the Cuban Revolution came, it was a process of the nationalization of everything, and mainly Cuba kind of like closed the door to any, I would say, information that actually happened after, right? So in Cuba, we actually went into periods of crisis, and we went into periods of some of the, I don't know how to explain, but like when you did music, you actually had to defend like the Cuban music. If you were to do some music, you have to put like the Cuban music first instead of other styles. That was the actual rule. And that's why like people like Chucho Valdés and Paquito de Rivera and Arturo Sandoval, they did all of these bands and they put everything, like the synths, they put organ, they put the guitars, they put the bata drums, they actually put like the drum set, as we know, they put a lot of changes in here. And what happened there is that they actually did like the Cuban music. So they will say, we have all of this stuff, but this is like Cuban music and it was going to be sold as a Cuban music, right? So they won't have any problem with the ministry and with the government and with the thing that happened after, right? So it was a political situation that actually enabled the musicians to be able to experiment more because, they felt that they could do things with the Cuban music that hasn't been done before in this case. What happened with Bam Bam, in my opinion, is maybe one of the first leading bands in the Cuban timba, but it's a different timba because with Bam Bam, they actually create a structure of the charanga. The charanga in Cuba comes from the mambo orchestras and the cha-cha-cha orchestras, in which they apply like the violins, strings, and they do patterns as well. They have like the congas as well. And with Bam Bam, you can see they use an electric bass, for example. They use a guitar, they use the trombones in this case as well. They use all of that. And the structures of the tumbao started to change with this guy. His name is like Cesar Pedroso Pupi, which in my opinion is one of the geniuses of the piano tumbao. He's even called like the Bach of the tumbao because the way he has to improvise and to put everything together in a tumbao, it's like, I want to show you a little bit about this tumbao so that you have an idea in Bam Bam. So it's like this. Right, so we have the accents, as you can see, pretty much, and then a fill-ins that he does is pretty much the 16th. So from here he will have a style of tumbao that is pretty known in the Cuban timba as the pupi tumbao, which is a mixing of the arpeggios and some of the line of counterpoints, in one tumbao that actually are kind of complex. I will actually show you an example of a tumbao in A. You can do this, right? And he will play like this, maybe 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Right, so it's something really strange that he uses with the left, the right, arpeggio. So it's mainly this. It's that. You know, with the bass thing. He can go up. He can go down, you know, he can do that. As part of the choices that you have to take as a pianist, how to do it, how to shape it in this case. But he will take really amount of arpeggios that he uses, for example, you know. He goes down. So we have to talk about something really complex on, you know, on his style that you actually can practice, you know, a tumbao like this, maybe from Bam Bam, this one. You can practice it from the harmony, you know, F minor. You have like D flat 7 and C7, right? So you can play this kind of the tumbao like this. And then you can switch one up and one down. For example, 1, 2, 3. Right? Well, when you play, it can be. Then he will use some chords. For example, 1, 2, 3. For example. You have to search for the counterpoint, you know. In this case, I have. It's not like this. It's a way to practice that. I think, Zach, that we can do from the minute 3:30 in La Habana, sí. En Bam Bam puedes hacerlo desde 3:30 para que vean un tumbado de pupi. Desde 3:30.
Vamos para adelante. Sí, sí. Sí, sí. Y en el 500 aniversario vamos a decirle otra vez. Se va a ver. Seguro se va a ver. Oye, a la monta.
Okay. So we have a harmony here, which is weird in my opinion. We have A, E flat, 7, right? D minor, so this is the way that he maps out the tumbao. What I like to think is that he divides it in 2 parts. I think one part with an ending 1, and then he goes back and then he does like an ending 2. I like to think like that. For example, 1, 2, 3. Back. And ending 2. Right? You actually have something, then you repeat, and then you have something else to complement the tumbao. So I like to think it like this. As part of it. Actually, one thing I want to say, when you have a triplet in a tumbao, or in Cuban music, you need to play that triplet as laid down as possible. There is no way that you can actually, you have to be a little bit under the tempo in order to feel what we call a cadencia. A cadencia is kind of like the laid back thing we actually have in order to feel more the music. So when we have, it's like pa 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 pi de pa ta pa de pi pe pa pi. It's like a little bit pa 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 pam, and then you go to the back tempo, right? It's a tumbao that I actually like to show that in this case it's a weird tumbao because it's mainly on the 13, right? It's a tumbao like this. 1, 2, So it's something pa pam po pam pam pi 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 po pam 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 pi and po pam pam. So you need to think pi 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 po pa pa po pa po pam pam. Like really laid back. Pa 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 po pam pa po pa is somewhat like a 6/8 kind of like, right? Po pam pam ta ta the way that you can think on a 6/8 in order to lay back a tumbao. And this is the last topic, I think, because maybe we want some questions about anything that I've said with the 6/8 and the Cuban music. I think, Zach, that you actually can put a recording of the Pedro Martinez Compa Gayetano. I think it's one of the best examples to actually do that. Maybe like at minute 1, I think. At minute 1 of the second 40, maybe second 40. I'm not sure where, but there's something he does. So you can see how like the actual feeling of the song changed. right? This is one of the things that happens in this music, and this happened with religion in Cuba. The Yoruba religion is maybe, I will say that the 95% of Cubans, they believe on Yoruba religion, which is mainly a syncretism between the Catholic religion with the actual religion that the slave from Africa came to Cuba, you know. They were forbidden to practice their religion, so they did something as a combination that came into Yoruba. And the religion actually is very important in the matter of the songs and the dances that we have. So we have a lot of saints, you know. We actually have a goddess Hortensia, which is the Yemaya. We have Chango, which is the strength, you know, and power, and the thunderbolt, you know. So in this case, with the drums, which call it the bata drums, we actually have a pattern for each one. Or each one of these gods has a pattern to play and a dance to dance. So it's something crazy that when you go to a ceremony, they start playing like that, and they are in the 6/8, and then they will go to 4/4, you know, immediately. So this is something in Cuban music that you will feel a lot in this case, and that actually you can apply into your play. I want to play a little bit the tumbao of Pedrito Martinez in Compa Cayetano, which it can be actually can feel the many ways that you can feel a 4 and 8, you know, and 6, but they are together. It's not that you feel it into separate, but when you lay actually back the music, you actually can think, instead of 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4, you can think of 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 in order to relax, right? So I think it's time to some questions. If you have, it sucks. It's good with all that we spoke today. Maybe you want to ask me anything about this or something else, whatever.
I have a question.
Okay.
So what about Emiliano Salvador? How do you put it, him and Cuban music?
Right. Well, Emiliano, in my opinion, is one of the most unique cases. I didn't bring Emiliano here because I'm talking mostly about the popular piano and the tumbao in the piano. Emiliano was a monster pianist, and he was unique on the way that he incorporated like the jazz. He was really good with the harmonies and arranging. You know, when you listen to I think it's La Puerto Padre. But in this case, I think that Emiliano, what is better is like the way that he improvises, right? He has a way to improvise. When you listen to his solos, you know, he actually, I think that he had things that actually Chucho Valdés took from him a little bit. I don't want to really make an statement. He used to do all of this stuff. And he will switch to a harmony, you know, from A flat, he will switch to D major. So in that case, I feel him like an Scriabin of Cuban music in the way that he really was out of the world of the Cuban stuff, in my opinion. He was really Cuban, he knew how to play, he was amazing, but he was even more amazing on the way that he was so original. He was really original on the way that he played. He really didn't play a lot of tumbao. When he played the tumbao was on the electric piano, on the Rhodes, that you actually can hear, you know. And really simple in that way, but yeah, I feel that he's maybe one of the greatest. Like sadly, he passed away like really young, so he couldn't like develop a career in that way. But he was a genius in my opinion. So thank you for bringing him up. The same case with Gonzalo Rubalcaba, for example, another great pianist that I don't say a lot because he has, you know, like a expanded world that we will need a lot of time to actually go through. But yeah, thank you for that. Any other question?
I have one. Hi.
Okay.
How are you?
Hi. Very good, very good.
I just have some questions about like displacement of rhythms and stuff, like how to feel much more comfortable with doing that. I know, like getting into the like mentality, you know, of the like clave or whatever, but still, you know, like getting in like more into that. If you have any like observation, you know.
A suggestion about the listening, I think that you should listen to the bongo in the changui, as you know, as we spoke, because the bongo has a lot of that. They actually are a masters of doing of this pattern and to displace the actual rhythm. So what we do as a pianist, you know, and when I do as a pianist, I actually take a lot of the percussion. So I actually try to reproduce what I do in the rumba, you know. If we have a rumba clave, for example, I try a little bit to do like a quinto in rumba, you know, to improvise and to do some stuff. So I really feel comfortable with the rumba. But if it helps, I will maybe like some exercises of independence that in this case, you actually can have a clave in one hand. For example, 1, 2, and you can do right? It's something with the clave that you can have a pattern and you can repeat it, like pam 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 pam, because that will enable you, you know, in a manner that when you improvise, you can do things like that. Right, so more independent that you are with your hands, you know, in order to do rhythms that you can repeat as a loop with the clave, you need to actually feel that you are comfortable doing those rhythms in order to go to the piano, then, you know, and do all of the displacement. That's why I go a lot into to listen to the percussionist and to try to learn as much as you can about the percussion in Cuban music and in music in general, because it will give you way more things. Maybe I can think about some exercise like and right? And you actually can keep a loop like that, so you can do pam 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 pam. So it's mainly about how do you develop rhythms, you know, and you think about the clave. You sing pam 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 pam, you know, like you have a loop like that. So when you do all of this, so in that case, you develop that. I hope that helps.
Yeah, right on. Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
It does. Yeah.
Right. Anything else? Okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
And pardon the vocal warm-ups in the background.
Don't worry, I am used to that too.
But I sometimes hear what I sometimes hear a lot in very modern tumbas. You hear like a whole line in the left hand underneath like more traditional stuff in the right hand. And I don't know if you can explain some of that.
Underneath.
Like, yeah, like almost like a moving eighth note melodic line underneath.
Oh, yeah. But in that case, I mean, I like when you hear to Ariadne Trujillo, she's the pianist from Pedro Martinez. Ariadne Trujillo, for me, she's like the master doing that because she's able to connect the right hand when she does something like that. That's something that you can do. I mean, some pianists do it. The thing with the tumbao is that there's really no limits to the creativity of what you can do. You actually can do anything. And one of the things that I forgot to say as well is that a tumbao can be like when you listen to a Guns N' Roses, you know, when you listen to that. How is it? I don't know how is it, but you know exactly which song is it, you know? In Cuban music, the same. When you listen to this, you know exactly which song. So we're talking about a signature tumbao in this case. That, you know, it doesn't have to be the tumbao to accompany, but you're putting a signature, you know, into the song. So I think that Ariadne does that a lot, but in the matter of doing the left hand, I think that's a little bit more complicated. I'm not sure how to maybe practice something like that because it takes a lot of security, you know, into your left hand in order to do stuff. I think that for that you need to train in the way of classical music. You need to have like the left hand really in shape in order to be able to do all of that. I think that's way more advanced, I would say. But what I can say, like that, for example, with Pupi, he uses that. For example, I can do an exercise. 1, 2, 3, 1. No, it's like that. No, it's like, okay, wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Because in that way you are able to practice both hands, you know, and the contrary motion as well, so that you can practice that. So it's only that, the third above. You rest, go down. And then you can do that, maybe something like. This is kind of what Ariadne does. This is really hard, I would say. But yeah, you can do something like that. I think that goes with the counterpoint and, you know, the independence that you have. In my opinion, you have to study maybe a lot of Bach to be able to do that. I would suggest maybe inventions, the preludes and fugue, everything that you can learn from Bach will be helpful for your life, no matter what kind of music you play. Like, everything is worth it from that. Any other questions? Yeah.
Hey, man. Thanks so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Of course. Yeah.
I was curious. I'm a drummer and a percussionist, and also like a composer, arranger.
Right.
What do you like to see in arrangements that you're not, you know, like what's ideal in this case to see?
In an arrangement of Cuban music, you say?
Yeah, like I'm writing a lot, but sort of curious about like
right.
How specific to get on the parts, actually.
Okay. The optimal thing that I will say it works is that as less as possible is like the better. That's the optimal thing. Why? Because with this music, we tend to forget and to confuse, the fill-ins with the accents. So if you write a lot of notes, you need to really know exactly what do you want in matter of accents, because then you have a lot of things happening, and if the performer, if he doesn't know the music, it will be something that is not grounded. In my opinion, I like the Cuban music arrangement that are in the most precise way, that we have only the accents that we want to hear, and mainly all of this music is not written. That's actually the main thing. There is not really a way that you can play this music because they just created the moment. With Bam Bam and the tumbaos, the pianist, he just have his way of playing. I don't really have a way where I play the same notes, we are changing constantly. So I think you maybe need to have in mind the nature of the improvisation of this music. It's something that is impossible, I think, to have it completely put together. Maybe if you want it in another setup, in a musical theater, maybe in a classical setup, it can work. But if you put a big band, I don't know how Arturo does exact to arrange all of that. But I will believe, for example, he has Queso, and Queso, like the conga player, I believe that he will do a lot of the stuff that he knows to do without Arturo saying, because it's part of the nature. Even Zach, as well as a drummer, I believe that he will play and he will fill in depending on the moment. So I will say as less as better, but you need to know if the drummer of the musician, if he knows how to understand the music. If not, then I'm sorry.
Awesome. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah.
Actually, I was gonna, as you were answering that question, I was wondering, do you ever get parts that have the tumbaos written out?
Oh yeah.
And is that horribly annoying? Is it helpful, or do you read it once and then know what it is and then make it up from there?
No, it's really annoying. No, in my opinion, it's like really annoying because when I try, I happened to meet with my friend Gabriel. Like he has his band, which is amazing, and he's an amazing musician. And I remember one of the first days, I came with him, and he had all of these tumbaos written in 2 lines, like classical music, like a bunch of notes. And I started playing all of this, and I found no sense at some point, because I found a lot of things. So what we agreed, now that I am in the band, I play whatever I want, but I try to keep the idea that he likes. I read through the tumbao that he has written, so I think, okay, maybe I believe he wants this. Not in that way, but I can put my own. So now on, like, he trusts me in that way. But yeah, if someone doesn't know, I will suggest that you actually do a tumbao, but in the easiest way possible. Because if you put a lot of notes, then the main accents, the main feeling, it will be lost. So it's really hard in order to actually put together a band. I will say a less, a better. So if anyone wants something else to say.
I mean, if there's no more questions, if anyone has any more questions, ask him now. Otherwise, Otherwise, thank you, Ahmed. That was great.
It was fun. I had a lot of fun too.
Yeah, I learned a lot, man. You know a lot about this stuff. You know a lot about the history of Cuban music.
Yeah, thank you.
It's always very impressive to me to talk to you about this stuff because you really know a lot, and you know a lot of music, and you study a lot of music, and I'm always amazed that you can sit down at the piano and just pull out this stuff from a random record from 60 years ago in Cuba.
It's really good. I had fun as well. Thank you, Zach.
Thank you, man.
And I want to thank as well the Algia for everything, and thank you guys for being part. It was a pleasure, for real. All right.
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you also. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.